Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to today's session. We're looking at journals and how you go about posting those and some of the related options that you've got within Sage 50 accounts. My name is Michael. I'm going to be presenting today, joined by a couple of my colleagues, Tina and Jackie. You may have been on some of their webinars as well. So they'll be on hand to help answer any questions that you might have during the session. Session today should last in the region of about 45 minutes maximum, I think. Just really depends on how many questions we get. A little bit of housekeeping just before we do get started. So as usual, you don't need a microphone, and if you got one, you will automatically be placed on mute. You'll find you can't unmute yourself during the session. So you can't verbally ask us any questions during the session, but you will be able to type them into the questions panel. You should see the questions panel in the bottom right-hand corner. If you can't currently see that, just click that little icon on your toolbar, and then you should see that in the bottom right-hand corner. And you can sure hide that throughout the session today. So pop your questions, your comments in there, and we'll try and pick them up as best we can. Apologies in advance if we don't get a chance to answer all of the questions. It is just the three of us on the session today. So we'll try our best to answer as many as we can though. There is a handout to accompany today's session, which is basically a copy of the slides that we have available that I'm going to be using. You'll be able to download that via the little link on your toolbar as well. And finally, there's a little option at the bottom of the toolbar there to switch to full screen mode. So I'll be sharing my screen during the session today, and you may find it just helps things, make things a little bit clearer and a little bit bigger if you do switch to full screen mode during the session. Right, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in the session, so the key areas. So first of all, we're going to look just at the very basics of posting journals into Sage accounts. We'll look at the memorize and recall option. So we'll touch on that and show you how beneficial it can be. Now that's not available in all levels of the software, but I'll explain that when we get onto that area. But it's a good little time-saving tip if you've got it available to you. We'll look at importing journals and how that can save you time. Obviously, some journals can be really lengthy, quite a few lines in there. And we're going to also look at corrections as well. So if you make a mistake, what options have you got? And just at the end of the session, I'm going to explain a little bit about the additional support that's available. And then if there are any outstanding questions at that point as well, I'll try and pick some of them up myself. But keep your questions coming, keep Tina and Jackie busy. I think we'll be joined by Abby as well. We are. And as I say, they're all on hand to answer any questions that you might have. Right, let's get started then. So I'm going to start with looking at actually posting journals. So debits and credits, as you may refer to it as. Now, some of the slides, if you have downloaded the PDF copy of the slides, the links will work for you that I've provided as well. So it'll take you to the relevant Help Center articles. Now, when we're starting to look at posting journals, we're just going to go into nominal codes in journal entry, and you can see a screenshot of the what we're going to look at in a moment. But what would you post journals for? Well, year-end adjustments, month-end adjustments, such as bad debt, depreciation, opening, closing stock adjustments, maybe just prepayments and accruals, using the option within the software, or the fixed assets option. To post depreciation, you might post depreciation manually, maybe as part of your year-end. Salaries is a common one as well. And you may have other uses for it as well. Buying and selling of fixed assets. You may enter that as a journal. So there's loads of different options for posting journals, and I'm sure there may be some journals that you post possibly that you don't even have to. Bank transfers. You may post that as a journal. Yes, it will do the same thing, but there is an option within the software to, I suppose, avoid you having to post that journal, having to post the debit and credit and making sure you got it the right way around. So there's actually a bank transfer option. So generally speaking, there's, there are other options to save you the time it takes to actually post the journal manually. So when you're doing a VAT return, for instance, this is the VAT transfer wizard, it will post a journal in the background. If you post any adjustments, again, they'll be posted in the background. But let's just have a quick look at the posting a basic journal into Sage accounts. And if you're not that familiar with posting journals, or maybe you're new to accounting just in general, there's some great courses available in Sage University. If you've not come across Sage University before, it's where we host all of our e-learning content. So there's some great courses just on basic bookkeeping. So if you want to learn more about just the basics in that area, then have a look in Sage University. Sage University can be accessed just heading along to sageu.com. Again, free to access and free to use all of those training courses that are available. So do check those out as well. Let me just share my screen though, and we'll quickly run through the basics of posting journals within the software. So we'll find the option within nominal codes, and then you've got the journal entry option at the top there. Now, if you can't see journal entry, or maybe you can't even see nominal codes, it'll be down to your access rights. A standard user would have access to the journals option. So if you can't see nominal codes, or you've got nominal codes, but maybe you don't have the journal entry option, then you're going to need to speak to whoever looks after the access rights, or the access levels, as they're now called, within the software, and just get them to enable that option if you need it. So anyway, we're going to go into journal entry. Let's just maximize that to maybe get rid of a few of the distractions. First of all, it's going to ask you for a reference. Now, this is just a text field, so you can put whatever you want in there. Now, it might be you actually have like a journal index number. It's not going to generate one of them automatically in the software for you, but I've seen it in the past where people will have, they'll keep a record of journals they post an allocated number to that. Now, if I just put an abbreviation of depreciation, it'll pick up today's date. Probably one of the most common mistakes in Sage is forgetting to change the date. You get worked up about the debits and credits and you just overlook the date itself. So it will pick up your current program date. If you're finding that's not today's date when you're coming into this screen, it's probably just that you haven't closed the software and reopened it today. So if you tend to just maybe lock your PC overnight and leave Sage open, that date's not just going to refresh automatically. It'll only pick up your date when you're first going into the software. You can't manually change it. Anyway, we can overwrite that date to whatever date we want. We can obviously backdate, we can even future date if needed. So pop in your date, but just tab down then to the nominal code column. Now, journals have got to be made up of a minimum of 2 lines. You might just have one debit, one credit. Doesn't matter what order you do them in there either, but it could be any length. So it's not unheard of for things like salary journals to be 50 lines plus, depending on how much you need to break that down. You might need to break it down between departments. So you might have different lines, even for the same sort of posting. You may break it down so you can post a different value to different departments or even funds. So if you set up for the charities option. So let's do a basic journal. So let's say we want to do a year-end depreciation journal, just as an example for our motor vehicles. It'll pull the name through automatically for you. So we can enter an extra reference. Obviously, you'll be familiar with that one from entering other types of transactions. I'm just going to leave mine blank. I'll leave the department blank, just to accept the default. Fund, I'll just ignore as well. So again, if you're on the charities option, if you've got any funds set up, it would list them from the drop down, but we'll just leave it blank. And then just tab into the details and see what I can type today. Depreciation, I'll just leave it at that. Generally, most journals you'll probably post with a T9 tax code. So it's normally to move fund or values between different nominal codes. That's what you're going to be using this for. So T9 by default, which is your non-VAT-able tax code. There may be occasions where it's not, but the vast majority of journals that you post will be T9. I'm sure some of you will be sat there thinking otherwise, but from experience, from looking at salary journals, bank transfers, all of those types of journals, you tend to find they're going to be non-VAT-able. So just pop £100 in the credit column. I'm not too concerned about the nominal codes that I'm using in this case, but we're just going to copy the information down. Good little tip when you're entering journals, you do have the icon at the top now, copy cell above. So if you want the same information copied down, you can either click the button at the top or just press F6 on your keyboard, and whatever's in the cell above, it will copy it down. And then in this case, we're just going to enter the same value against the debit. Now, if when you go to save it, and what I'll do is I'll quickly change the value there. So bear in mind this journal could be a really lengthy one. It's not in this instance. But if you try to save a journal where it doesn't balance, or maybe you've gone beyond the end of your financial year, you'll get this message first. So just continue. But that's the message I was expecting to get. Journals do not balance. So the total of the debits and the total of the credits, doesn't matter whether you've got 10 credits in one debit, doesn't matter about that, but the total of all the debits and the total of all the credits must balance. If they don't, you'll get that warning. You'll not be able to save that transaction. So we'll just amend that one, and then we'll save it. And that's it done. And that's how easy it can be to post journals. Now that was just a 2-line journal. Appreciate, they can be very, very lengthy at times. Now, if you're not sure about your journal, our support team's not necessarily going to be able to say, right, you need to debit this, you need to credit that one. They may be able to point you in the right direction, maybe if you can't get your journal to balance or how you enter a certain transaction, but they can't really tell you what you need to post. So please bear that one in mind. If you need some advice on journals, probably the majority of them are going to come from your accountant. They'll probably advise you on what to do and what needs to be debited and credited. Now that's actually the basics of posting journals. We're going to look at some of the other options to complement that as we're going through the various areas today. The first one I want to look at with you today is memorize and recall. So let's pop back to the slides. Now I did mention at the beginning, this isn't available in all levels, and the memorize and recall option for the journals area, it's available in a lot more areas than just journals, but for the journals area, memorize and recall is only available on the professional level of the software. So if you're on essentials or the standard level, you won't have this option available. If you do have it available, so if you are on the professional level, which is it's a very popular option in this area, it means that you can enter your journal, and before you save it, to commit that to your accounts, what you can do is you can memorize it. So you can save a copy of that journal to file. So what you would maybe term copying the structure, sometimes referred to as a skeleton journal as well. So we'll just quickly run through it just so you can see how that option works. It can be a great time-saving feature, this one. So you're entering the information once, and then if you need to post a similar journal in the future, you recall that file, so you recall the structure, make any amends, and then save it. And again, it's a great option if you've got very lengthy journals. It doesn't have to be for a lengthy journal. You could use it for a 2-line journal, but the lengthier ones, it will obviously give you the greatest time saving. Again, little link on your slide if you've downloaded that one. So you can go straight to the Help Center article. Let's have a quick look at it though. So back to my screen. Show you how this one works. Now, if I just pick on the same journal that I've literally just entered. So what we'll do, it was motor vehicles. Should maybe just go off the drop down. I'll select it, there it is. And I'll do a slightly different value this time, so you can see it doesn't mix in with the previous example so much. Again, F6 to copy the information down, and then we'll do 250 in that one as well. Now, before I save it, if I save it, that would enter the journal onto my audit trail, so post the transactions. So what I can do is I've got these two options at the top, memorize and recall. So firstly, I want to save that structure. So I'll memorize it. And I'll give it a file name and a description. So I'll just put my initials in so we can easily spot that one. I'll put it in both boxes and I'll save it. Obviously, you can call it whatever you want. You can add as many of those as you want as well. Now, if I needed to, I would save that transaction at that point. I'm just going to clear it though. So say I've come to do that journal again. Rather than me look for the nominal codes and pop them in there and add them to the journal entry, what I can do if I've got access to the memorize and recall option is if I go to recall and find the file, so there it is there, and I load it. Now you'll see there's some standard ones already there as well. So these have been, I think these have been added to over the years. Some of them have been there a long time. So things like monthly salary journals, opening stock journals, reversing closing stock journals. So there's loads of them available, including the one I've just entered. So highlight the one I'm after, click load, and you'll see essentially it brings that through for me. So if you've got quite a lengthy journal, you're not having to scroll through and say, all right, what's the number for that one again? You're pulling through the structure. Now, once you load it, I can make any amends I want. So if I needed to change the date or the reference, or maybe I've got a line on my lengthy journal that is no longer needed, I could remove that line. I can add lines. I could split values. I can make whatever changes, but it's loaded that ready for me to make those amends and then click save. So again, really simple option, that one, but that's a really it's a well-loved feature, that one, once you start using it, if you've got it available to you. So as I mentioned, the link to Memorize and Recall, it is available in other areas as well. You might find it on Memorize and Recall on batch entry screens like batch of bank payments. You've got it within invoicing as well. So do have a go of it. Right, let's pop back. So Margaret, yeah, Margaret was just asking there, is she correct in thinking that the memorize function works for other areas as well? So customer invoices, that type of thing. Yes, absolutely. Some areas as well, once you've memorized it as well, you can then use that memorized document, whatever it is, to create recurring transactions, such as if you use memorize and recall within the customer invoicing area. You don't have a recurring option though within the journal entry screen itself. Get around that in a way. If you needed to set up a recurring, you could do it with as a bank recurring entry. Helen's just asking which version has the memorize option. Version wise, potentially it's all versions, Helen. It's to do with the variant of the version you're on. So obviously there's 3 variants or 3 levels of the software at the moment: Essentials, Standard and Professional. So only the professional level of the software that would have the memorize and recall options available within the journal entry screen. Right, okay, let's pop back to the slides and we're going to move on. So possibly some more food for thought, this one, and that's importing journals. Now, importing, once you discover importing transactions, and obviously you can import journals, which is what we're going to demonstrate today, again, it can be a good time saver. If you're bringing information from other software, or maybe you just want to build up a journal in the likes of Excel and then import that once it's done. So rather than keep importing during the month, or getting people to individually enter separate expenses, what you could do is get them to add that to a spreadsheet. They submit that to you, and then you just import that information. And if you can get your colleagues to buy in, or possibly even your accountant at year end, rather than just give you a list of journals that you need to post, can they fill in the import template, which we'll look at in a moment as well? Pop the information on there, and it will make your life even easier when you come to import that information. Probably less to do. But why import? Why would you use this functionality in the first place? Well, there's a number of two main uses for importing. One is to add new data. So adding things like records, customers, suppliers, products, even nominal records, and also adding new transactions. The other option for use for import as well is to update existing data. So you can actually use the import option to update your existing records. So if you wanted to update things like tax codes, not tax codes, well, you could do tax codes, but things like credit limits, for instance. If you wanted to update that within your customer records, for instance, sometimes it can be easier to get your list into the likes of Excel, go down and amend the credit limits against the individual records, and then import that information back in. Now, I'm not covering that today. What I want to look at is importing transactions, in this case, journals. So the benefits of importing: saves you time, it's flexible, you've got a nice wizard you can follow, and also it avoids mistakes. Now, how does it avoid mistakes? Well, whatever's the information is that's on the likes of your spreadsheet, your import file, it imports that. You're not sitting there keying it in again. Now, again, for importing journals, there is information available in the Help Center, so that link's available to you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through an example in just a moment. But just a quick mention for what you can import. So records-wise, I've mentioned some of these already. Transaction-wise, again, split into a number of different areas. The one we're going to concentrate on are audit trail transactions. Now, the options that you do have available to you when you get into the import wizard will be dependent on the level of your software. So again, if you want, I'm not necessarily talking about the version, I'm talking about the level of the software. So whether you want essentials, standard, or professional. For instance, fixed assets, you only have that option if you're on the professional level. So you wouldn't be presented with that option if you go into the import wizard if you're on the essentials level, for instance. Now, preparing your data to import. Best option for this one is to use one of the Sage import templates. I think there was a question about that one just a little bit earlier. Sure, I noticed that one pop through. I think that was Olga. So import templates, you can use your own file, but there is a Sage import template that you can access. And the easiest way to get at that is to actually access the import wizard. And then in step one, it's got a link on the main body of the page there. So just click the link and it will take you into that area. And I'll show you that in just a second. Right, okay. So we're going to go through a demo next. So we're going to go into File and then Import. And we'll just follow that import wizard through just so you can see what the process looks like. And again, this might not be something you use immediately, but again, once you're aware of the option, you might start spotting opportunities where you could use this. And it doesn't have to just be for journals. It could be for things like your direct debits and your standing orders. If you normally key those in at the end of every month, get them popped onto an import template and maybe just change the dates on that each month and then import that. Saves you sitting there keying them in each and every time. So anyway, we'll run through a demonstration just so you can see what that looks like. Right, we're going to close out of journals. And what I'm also going to do, I'll just get back to my desktop for the time being. And I've got a journals file here. Now not that one. Let me select the right file, that would help. This import file here. Now it's saved as an Excel file, but just open it so you can see what that looks like. Now I've used the Sage import template. I'll show you how to access that template in just a moment, but I've got the information filled in on here. So it indicates the things like the transaction type. Is it a JC or a JD? So a journal credit or a journal debit. Now, when you're importing journals, what you will do is put the same nominal code in both columns, the account reference and the nominal account reference. So that's one little tip just to remind you of. Now, I'm going to show you how to access the templates at this stage. So we'll go back to Sage for a moment, go into the File menu, choose Import. It launches the wizard, same as what I had on that screenshot a few moments ago. And on step 1, on the welcome page, you've got this link here. So if you click that, it will take you into the relevant folder where the import templates are stored on your PC. If you find you click that and it doesn't list them, then it's either going to be that the files have been deleted or moved, or maybe you don't have a full installation. So easy to get back, just be a case of reinstalling your software. Now, the one we're interested in is this one at the top, this audit trail transaction full template. Now, if I just double click that, it will take me into the MD template itself. So just to quickly explain the import template. So we've got column headings along the top. Now, the ones in this sort of aqua sort of blue color, these are what you would term a mandatory field. So you've got to put something in that column. So each transaction or each line of your journal would be entered on a separate line. You've got to have something in these required fields. If you hover over them as well, you'll find that you get the comment box pop up and it's got more information about it. So as you can see, just from the transaction type, it gives you a list of the types of transactions that you could import. So bank receipts, payments, journal debits and credits, which is what we're looking at today, invoices, credit notes, purchase invoices, purchase credits. So you've got a range of transactions. It's just journals I want to pick on today though. You've got your account reference and your nominal account reference. Again, they should be both the same thing when you're importing a journal. Your date's a mandatory field, and also the net, the tax code, and the tax amount. Now, for a journal, you will only have a net amount, and generally it will be T9. Tax amount, that would always be 0 for a journal. The yellow one off the columns that have that yellow colouring, these are optional fields, so things like a department, a reference against the journal, details, and a few of the other fields as well. So they are optional. But generally, what you'll probably find for the any journals is that you'll just fill in maybe the columns A through to maybe through to J, which are the majority of the fields that you'll need. Now, using this, it is a protected file. So if you went to File, you find you're going to need to do a Save As. It won't let you overwrite the default file. So File, Save As, give it a different file name, and then you can start making your changes to it. So let's close out of that one. So as you can see, I've used the template. This is what mine actually looks like. So I've got some salary information that I want posted for tomorrow. So this is almost a bit like the memorize and recall that we've just looked at. So I've got my structure in here, and maybe I just use this each month. Maybe I change the dates, and then if necessary, amend the values. I can add additional lines in or remove lines, save the file, and then import it, rather than me sitting keying in that full journal into the journal entry screen. So again, it's something that you could maybe just keep adding to. Get your colleagues to fill in their expenses on the likes of one of these templates. And then all you would need to do is fill in any missing information. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this one. Before you import, you must close your import file. You must have it closed. Right, let's just get back to where we were on the main desktop. So I'm back on the home page there. So I'm going to go into File, back down to Import, launches the wizard. Remember, that's the link there to access the import templates. Step 1 mentions about backing up. It's got an option for that one. The reason it mentions that one is I've seen it in the past where maybe people run through the import wizard and they import the wrong file. They've just accidentally selected the wrong one. The information's right, so it imports it. So the only way you'd be able to then undo that, other than manually going through and reversing or deleting those transactions, is by restoring a backup. So it does prompt you to take one at this stage. I'm going to skip past that. but I would always encourage you to take a backup at that point. So we click next. Step 2 is the data type. What is it you want to import? So I'm just going to import audit trail transactions. Now, if anyone has version 28.1 installed, so you've got the latest update, you've also got audit trail transactions grouped. And this would be used for things like, let's say you import a batch of invoices and it's maybe a single invoice that has multiple lines on it, but you've imported it. If you use the grouped option, it would group that together where you would get one transaction, but you would have a breakdown of the items. If you just use the standard one, it's going to show the items individually. So I'll just pick up on the audit trail transactions at this point. So we select that top option. We click next. Prompts you, what's your data source? So step 3, is it a comma separated value file, a CSV file, or is it an Excel worksheet? So mine's an Excel file. So I'll just browse for it. So it was that one there, one that we just looked at. So select it, click open. Now my import file does contain headings. And if your Excel worksheet, if it contains a number of tabs, then you would also get a further prompt, which is the tab that contains your transactional information. So that can still be within your Excel file. So, you know, someone's just asking there about if you've got workings in your worksheet, etc. Does it matter? That's absolutely fine. So as long as that's on a separate worksheet, it'd be absolutely fine. It would just ignore that. You would choose which of the worksheets within your workbook that contains the transactional information. So the standard import template, which I'm using today, doesn't include that. So I'm not prompted with that option, but it does contain headings. I click next. I've got the field mappings. Now, what the field mappings is, this has been around for a long time now. What we're basically saying is, in Sage, the type column for the information, which column in your import field, in your import file, contains the transaction type. So because I've used the import template, the mapping is done automatically. If I'd use something completely different, maybe my own file, and I've got different headings, what I would need to do is look for the transaction type information, which of the columns contains that information. So I would just select it from the drop down. If you don't have columns, you would need to know, it's going to present you with like A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. And you just need to know which column contains the transaction type. It means that, you know, if you're using your own import file, your import template, that the information doesn't necessarily have to be in the correct order column-wise. The transaction type might be in column E, for instance, so it doesn't have to be the first one. Just in case you need to say, right, in this file, the transaction type is in this column. So it's mapped automatically because I've used the import template. So the titles of those columns match what Sage requires. Just going to click next. I'm on to step 5. I'm ready to go. So I click import. It'll read that information, and that's those transactions entered into my accounts. Now, initially, import can feel quite slow. You might be thinking, well, actually, I'd be quicker just keying that in. But the more you use that, the quicker you're going to get with it. And again, the more you use it, the more you'll probably start spotting opportunities where you can use it as well. So things like direct debits, standing orders, those regular transactions. Does your accountant give you a list of journals to post at year end? Could they put that information onto the template instead? So you just import that rather than sitting there keying it in. So that's those journals that was on that spreadsheet. That's it entered into my accounts at that point. If I just click close and go into transactions, you'll see there it is there. So from that line to the bottom, that's the journal that we've just entered and imported. So start thinking about those repeat transactions where you can save yourself a little bit of time. Right, okay, Next, we're going to take a quick look at corrections. So back to the slides just for a few minutes. Now, corrections-wise, your software is very forgiving these days. If anyone's used Sage for a very long time, you might remember that every time you came across an error with a journal, you had to manually reverse it. So you'd be posting another journal with the same details as the original to reverse it. But these days, for the majority of journals that are entered into your accounts, you'll just be able to go into edit and delete it, and just edit and delete it in the same way that you would with any other transaction, whether it was bank payments, receipts, bank transfer, batch invoice, batch credit. You would just edit in exactly the same way. So the ability to edit and delete was introduced in version 22. So manual journals that you enter, bank transfers, and also imported journals. So if you just, a bit like that journal I've just imported there, if I'd made a mistake, maybe I've imported and I thought, oh, I forgot to change the date, or maybe one of the lines was against the wrong nominal code, I can go and amend that. So again, really flexible, your software. You don't have to then reverse it out manually and then do it all again. So we'll have a look at that in just a moment. There will be some occasions where when you edit a transaction, it is limited as to what you can do with that. And that will be because of the way that the journal has been entered into your accounts. So journals that you won't just be able to edit or delete will be things like journals that are posted as part of the year-end process. If you use the automatic prepayment or accruals option that's available within the professional level of software, or the automatic depreciation option, which is also only in the professional level. And also, if you've got a Sage 50 payroll, if you use the nominal link to transfer your payroll information across automatically into your accounts, again, those journals that are transferred across and posted automatically, you'll not be able to just go in and edit those or delete them either. The bits you will be able to amend in this particular screen, we'll look at both examples in a moment, are going to be the text-based fields. So even when you are restricted, you'll still be able to go in and change the reference or the extra reference, the description, the details, but not things like the nominal code or dates or values. So we'll have a look at those in just a second. Now, if you needed to correct a journal manually, what you'd be doing is literally using the same details as the original. It's not as common these days because it's much more flexible. You've got the option to edit and delete your journals. But if you find you are in a position where you do need to reverse a journal out manually, maybe you are restricted as to what you can do, then same details as the original journal, same dates, nominal codes, tax codes, values, but you would just need to reverse the debits and credits. So if originally you posted a debit, you would post it as a credit to reverse it, and vice versa. So that's the only thing that you would actually change. Right, so what we'll do at this stage, we'll get back into Sage 50 and we'll quickly run through a couple of examples. Now, correcting journals, there is a recorded webinar on this as well, so we go a lot more in depth than what I'm about to in this particular webinar. So if you need more information about correcting journals, do check out the recording. Links to the recordings will be included on your follow-up email, which you should get later today. Right, back to my screen then. And we're going to pick on a journal first of all. So we'll just go right to the top and we'll pick on the edit and delete option first of all. So I'll highlight this journal. This is a journal that I've entered in manually. So transaction 1 and 2, this depreciation. And if I highlight one of the lines of the journal and click edit, it loads the journal into a screen that you're going to be familiar with, and it will let me amend that journal. So let's say I've posted it with the wrong date. I can go in and I can amend that. So let me put that one back to November. I say put it back to November. It's actually 30th of this month, so we'll put it forward to November. And then what I'll do is I'll save the changes. Now, before I save the changes, I could, if I needed to, I can amend things like nominal codes, any typos, change values. I could even add additional lines in or remove lines. But again, before you save any changes, obviously your total debits and total credits must balance. Just save that one. And that would be it done. Now the original journal, because I've amended it, it will now appear in red. So it'll see cancelled, see transaction, gives you the new transaction number. So what it's going to do in this instance is it's going to post a new journal to the end of your list. So the new journal, as you can see, it's got the date in that I've just amended it to. Now, where you've got a journal there where it was entered via an area that, such as prepayments as an example, where you're not going to be able to just go in and delete the journal. So this is a one that was posted via the prepayments option. So this one, if I go in to edit this one, it doesn't give me the full journal, and that's just because of where you've got this sort of restricted edit option because of the way it's being entered into your accounts. So this is the one where I can't go in to amend the date. I can't go into amend the value or the tax code. The only thing I can amend on this type of journal is the text-based fields, so the details, the description, the reference. The rest of it is, as you see, it's grayed out. Final thing to quickly mention for correcting journals is the journal reversal option. Now, if you've got a journal that's maybe the likes of this one as an example, this section here, transaction 14 to 17, I think I've posted those in error. And you're not in a position where I could highlight that and say, right, I want to get rid of it, I want to delete it. It won't let you, the delete option is grayed out. So rather than me go through and manually reverse that out, make a note of the date. I'll just write it down myself just to make sure I don't have to come back into this screen. So make a note of the date, and then what we can do is we can go into nominal codes, and you've got this journal reversal option. Now, journal reversal option is available in all levels of the software. It's been around since 2014, that one. So it's been around quite some time, and it's available in all levels. So you'd have it in essentials, standard, and professional. And what this will do is we'll load this little window. It does prompt you to take a backup, but quite unusual to do it at this stage. But I should probably, going down the line, I should encourage you to do that. So take your backup, just OK it, and then it will prompt you to specify some criteria. Now, what I normally do for this option is, excuse me, is just leave the transaction range as is and just set your date. So in my case, it was 31st of the 10th, 2018 for this specific journal. So everything else just as is, OK that one, and it will load the journals. Now, in this case, it has loaded more than I was after. So we'll find the ones you're after. So it was those 4. Make your selection. Click reverse. It'll move the journals that you've selected onto the screen. Obviously, it still needs to balance, but essentially it will reverse the debits and credits. So it's going to post another journal for you automatically, almost like to save you digging, to avoid digging that bigger hole for yourself. So rather than doing it manually and sitting there keying in the debits and credits, going along those lines, just use that journal reversal option. It's a good little time-saving tip, that one. Right, now that brings us to the end of the demos for journals. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought. Maybe a few light bulbs have gone and thought, oh, I could really save some time by using the import option or memorize recall, just to save you a little bit of time and get things that entered that bit quicker. We just quickly pop back to the slides for a moment. Now, keep your questions coming. We've still got Jackie, Tina and Abby on hand answering your questions. Looks like you've kept them busy. But if we just pop back to the slides for a moment, just want to quickly mention a little bit about Sage Membership. If you've attended any of our webinars recently, you may be familiar with this one. But Sage Membership, if you've signed up for Sage Membership, just a case of creating a log-on for yourself, brings together a number of options. Sage University, mentioned that one a little bit earlier, the very beginning of the session about the e-learning courses. You've got Sage City. Now we're starting to use Sage City more as part of the webinars now, so you'll see the top questions and answers popped onto Sage City later on today. Along, you can access recordings, and also you'll be able to download another copy of the slides if you haven't already. So you'll see blogs, question and answers, posts, etc. in there. And also Sage Masterclass. Now Sage Masterclass is all about, I suppose, general business advice. So concentrating on certain topics. So season 1, in fact, season 2's out now as well. So season 1 was all about finding and keeping great people. So there's loads of business experts giving advice, tips in that particular area. So we're not looking at Sage software on these. We're looking at general business advice. So do use those. Links included at the bottom of the slide there. If you've downloaded the handout, that link should work for you. Now, a quick plug for some of the upcoming webinars we've got as well. And the key one I've mentioned there is prepayments and accruals, so more journal-themed webinars. So if you want to come along to learn more about prepayments, accruals, get yourself signed up for next Friday. It's an unusual time of 1:30 for that one. But get yourself signed up. Loads of other webinars coming up as well. Credit control. We're running with that theme quite a bit throughout December. VAT return as normal. Tina will be looking at customers' letters and how you can use it for festive messaging. We're looking at fixed assets, depreciation, fuel scale charges, and probably one of our most requested topics when we talk about VAT is Brexit tax codes. So Jackie will be running a session on that one. If you've got any requests as well, pop them onto the survey that should pop up as you leave the session today. And we take a look at those to see what people are after. But get yourself signed up. They're all free to attend. The links will be included on your follow-up email. But just in case you lose that email, or maybe you don't want to wait for that one, if you go into your software and click on your toolbar on the left, if you click home, one of the panels you will have is this one here, free webinars. If you click more info, it will take you into the webinar article. So that's a good little tip for you, that one. You can see what's coming up. So the next session that we are running, Thursday next week. So a little bit of time off from webinars for the 4 of us, and then back on it on Thursday morning next week, looking at reconciling and submitting your VAT return online. If you want to attend any of those, just click register now, pop in your details, and as normal, it'll fire out an email straight back to you. So that was just the home page within the software, and look for the free webinars little panel. Give it a click. Right, now it brings us to the end of the session. Overrun by a little bit, but obviously lots of content to get through. So let me quickly thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it and you found it useful. There will be a little survey pop up as you leave. You can take a minute just to pop a few comments on there, share some thoughts, ideas, topics you'd like to see covered going forward, anything, everything, pop it on there. It's always nice to let us know whether we're hitting the mark or not with these sessions. Follow-up email should be with you later today as well. It will include the links so you can register for future webinars, watch recordings via the recordings page as well. You'll be able to then access the top questions and answers from today's session, along with a copy of the handout if you haven't already downloaded that. So we're just going to hang around for a couple more minutes, just to see, give everyone a chance to finish off the questions that we've got. But otherwise, that brings us to the end of the session. And as I say, thanks for coming along, and we hope to see you on some other sessions soon. Now, I'm going to quickly pick up on a question from George. So I'll just quickly assign that question. George's question, can you extract an audit trail of all journals, year-end journals only, posted by your predecessor, maybe from a previous year-end? So George, you will be able to do that. Let me just try and point you in the right direction for that one. if I just share my screen again, let's get rid of that browser window. If you go into your transactions list, easiest thing to do is try and find those transactions. So let's say it was, you find them on the list, they're all going to have year-end journal, I think, as the detail. So find that chunk of journals that are posted as part of the year-end. I'm assuming they'll all be posted together. And then probably the best thing to do is just make a note of the transaction range. So let's say I wanted transaction 7 down to 13 as an example. If I then went into the audit trail report at the top, and let's just choose the brief one as an example. When I run that, it will let me specify a transaction number range. So if I did 7 to 14, I can then run that report and it will give me a list of only the ones that meet that criteria. The other option as well is to apply a filter. So maybe based on, you're looking for transactions on a specific date. And then what you could do is send the information across to Excel, and it's only going to send across the information that's listed. So filter your list and then send it to Excel. So you've got a couple of ways to almost like crack the same nut there, George. Hope that makes sense. Right, okay. We'll end the session at that point. Apologies if we haven't got round to answering your questions. Use the Help Centre, loads of information in there. But if you still need some support beyond that, get in touch with our support team. They'll be happy to help. So thanks again for coming along. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you again. Many thanks.